comparison does two things. It's always a trap, but it does two things. Number one, if you're comparing yourself against somebody who's further down the road, let's say Grant, Tony Robbins, whoever, what happens is
What's going on, everyone? I'm Mike Ashabi, and welcome to another episode of the True Life Network podcast. Today, I have a special treat for you. He's a 10X Master Coach, Grant Cardone licensee, and a real estate professional. He's closed over $250 million in real estate transactions, ending off 2019 in the top 1% of 3,700 realtors. He's the CEO of the Ken Joslin team and the Growth Stack Drive brand. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you the one and only Ken Joslin.
Come on, man. That's good, bro.
Ken, thank you for joining me, man.
That's good, dude. Honored to be here, my friend.
I appreciate you. So, Ken, I want to jump into your background, kind of get an understanding of where you came from and where you are now, because I know you're doing phenomenal things, hosting events, hosting your own events and doing a lot of training with a lot of companies and realtors, right? So I kind of want to dive into your background and get a better feel for how you started with all this.
Well, the last 25 years, I spent half in full-time vocational ministry, pastoring churches, planting churches. The other half I spent in the real estate field. Mortgage broker, 01 to about 08, 09 when the industry crashed. For 4 years, we were the number one wholesale broker for Countrywide and SunTrust in the Southeast. I had 2 offices, 2 locations in Georgia. We were licensed in 3 states. And we're doing really well. I mean, that was back when the mortgage industry was just crushing it. And then spent another 5 or 6 years in full-time ministry from about 2009 to 2016. That'd be 7 years. And then went back. We moved to Birmingham. A health issue with my daughter forced us to move to Birmingham so she could get treated at UAB, and which she's doing great now. And from there, went right back into real estate. Started real estate, doing well, and then have always been a coach and a pastor, man. So to be able to start to Growth Stack Drive, GSD, as a coaching and consulting group it's really what I'm passionate about, what I love to do.
So what got you in the real estate game?
So I was traveling 2001. I was traveling. I was in ministry. I wasn't in a church. A friend of mine who played in the NBA for a little bit, we were doing motivational high school assemblies. We spoke to, in 2000, about 325,000 students across the country in 1 year. I had a brand new baby and about a 1.5 year old, almost 2-year-old baby. And my wife looked at me one day and she said, "You cannot be gone 4 days a week." And I was. And then, you got, Saturday, Sunday, it was crazy. So I did that for about 11 months and then moved back to Georgia. My best friend was a mortgage broker, super successful. We've been friends since we were 7. I walked into Chris's office and said, "Dude, I'm moving back to Georgia. I need a job." Chris handed me keys to a Lexus LS 400 and said, "That's your office," and turned me loose to figure out, like, literally, when you say, Uncle G says commit first and figure the rest out later. I committed. He gave me an office and a car, and I walked in it, and I made like $146,000 my first year doing real estate or doing mortgages. Had no idea. I didn't know a 1003 from a 1008 to a loan app to anything. I just knew people, and I knew how to take care of people. One of the things I say a lot is we want something for people, not from people. When you add value to people, people are going to want to do business with you, and that's what I did. Did that, and I blew it up for 2 years with Chris and 2.5 years, and then got my own broker's license and rolled with it for about 5 years until the housing market crashed in 08.
Let's go. Yeah. So let me ask you, are you only doing the agent side or are you doing investing as well?
Well, so back then I had 13 rental properties. So haven't gotten back.
When you started?
Yeah, I had 13 back in 05, 06.
Let's
for
go.
Sure did. Yeah, so I had 13. They were all single families. I was buying a lot then. I don't really have time to do that now. My goal would be to get into multifamily. I get deals. Somebody just sent me a deal in Houston this morning. Literally just sent it to me. And I'll take some of the relationships I have. If somebody has a deal like that, I'll pass it off to a Carlos Reyes. I'll pass it off to different friends that I have that are in that industry that might be interested in a deal. Right now, no, not on the not right now on the investment side. More building my team through EXP in Birmingham and in Atlanta.
So are you partnered with the Cardones on EXP?
No, I was actually with EXP before them. I should have been. That's
So you started. Are they on your downline?
No, they're not. They should have been. And I'll say this real quick. This is a great segue into one of the things that I learned this year that was super important is taking time to work on your business, not in your business, like reflection time, dreaming time, like really painting the picture for what it looks like. Because, you said it just a while ago to me. You were like, dude, I'm so busy, I don't know. Because I asked you about Gary V's being here in Miami and Carlos Reyes, my good friend Carlos, speaking at that conference with Gary V. And you're like, I don't know when anybody's conference is. I'm so head down and going forward.
Tunnel vision.
Yeah, and it's so easy to do that as entrepreneurs. I should have been the one I could have took that to Grant and got that deal done very easily. But instead of, wallowing in it and being like, oh me, oh my, I stopped and I said, okay, what can I learn? Take a step back. Okay, I've got to incorporate downtime, reflection time in my calendar so that I can work on my business and not in my business. So that was the biggest lesson I learned last year was Grant and Elena signing up with EXP and Lisa getting them and not me.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So one thing that you said there was about reflection time. What do you do during your reflection time? Are you looking back at mistakes that you've made? What does reflection time mean to you?
Well, I'll tell you this: if you don't take as much time to look at mistakes as you do to dream, you're missing the boat. Because inside of every one of those, every mistake you made, really there's a seed, there's a DNA for you to be able to grow and become a better version of who you are. I teach calendar blocking. We use 4 color codes on my Google Calendar. It's blue, green, yellow, and red. Blue, if you go on my phone, my blue time in the morning is my personal development time. My morning routine is like, I'm out of town today here in Miami. It's hard for me to be out of town because I get out of routine. When you're in routine, John Maxwell says, show me your daily schedule and I'll tell you how successful you're going to be.
100%.
So blue is personal development time. When I get up, I grab my phone, I do my quiet time. I read some scripture, I listen to some worship music. My workout clothes are laid out on my chair. My pre-workout's already mixed in the refrigerator. My work day starts the night before. I've already got it all planned out. I know exactly what I'm going to do every minute, the night before I go to bed. Green is where we make money. You better have time on your calendar where you're doing sales or whatever it is to move the revenue needle in your business. Yellow's where I work on the business, not in it. Red's when I spend time with people that I love. So I can look at my calendar and I know if I've got those 4 colors in my calendar throughout the week, it's going to be a successful week.
You're doing something right then.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Love that, bro. So in regards to, I want to take it back to the reflection portion though, because for me, I personally tell everybody, you got to know where you've been so you know where you're going. And when I talk to people about their why, I'm always saying that there has to be a pain point attached to it, because if you don't know the reason why you're trying to achieve something and there's no pain point, you're pushing to achieve. That shit will die right out, right? You need to know where you've been and you got to know those pain points so it pulls you into action. It's that thing that wakes you up every morning, keeps you up at night, ready to go, just trying to improve constantly. So when I tell somebody to look back and reflect, I'm really trying to get them to evaluate their pain points, the most painful experiences in their life, so they know, hey, you know what, I've been through that. It was so painful, I never want to, go through it again. And then that's literally what pulls them into action, right? It gives them a reason for trying to get as far away as possible from that pain. So I'm kind of curious a little bit more in depth about your reflection time.
Well, in Scripture, in the Old Testament, where it talked about the children of Israel, Moses didn't get to go in the Promised Land because they sinned. And literally, they marched around. They were 13 miles. Theologians say they were 13 miles away from the Promised Land. For 40 years, they marched around. They took the same test over and over and over. If you don't get it right, you're going to take the same test again. So literally, whatever that test is, whatever that mistake is that we made, I want to look at it and go, and one of my 5 core values is teachability. We're not only open to feedback, but we actively pursue feedback. Like I'm in constant learning mode. My good friend Brad Lee says, get new information. He said every day, get new information. I am in constant learning mode. So when you do that, you look at a mistake through the lens of, and you have to understand your self-worth. You have to understand your identity and who you are. For me, that's in my faith in Christ. But you have to understand that when you understand who you are, your self-worth and your identity, you understand I'm not the mistake. Because a lot of people don't want to look at mistakes because they feel like they are the mistake. That's shame. Shame says you are the mistake when really when we make a mistake, it's just we did something stupid. Okay, what do I got to do to fix it? how can I not recreate or get in that same situation and make the same mistake 2 times?
Well, I think shame comes from ego, right? They don't want to be, that person who either messed up in a certain way, or they think that they're too good to go through an experience like that. I think ego can go 2 ways, right? It could be positive or negative, because there's positivity in it in regards to, okay, you know what, I know I'm great. It's that belief, internal belief. Mm-hmm. But then on the other hand, it doesn't allow you to learn. Right. It doesn't allow you to really understand situations that you're not willing to face the truth. And that's another reason why I called it True Life Ventures, because personally, I had an issue facing my own truth, my own reality. And once I started looking at my own truth, the truth sets you free. Yes. And it allows you to live your true life. Right. So, that's my mission. I want to help as many people as possible to go ahead and face their own truth. So, that's where the whole reflection thing comes into play.
Yeah, I love that. We were having conversations earlier, because you and I have talked a couple times, but not really had some time to spend some time together. And just listening to you talk, I really kind of could sense your heart, sense kind of where you were, and it was really cool connecting with you at that level. I think the biggest thing people have a problem with is comparison. That's one of the main things. It's what I love about F45, the gym I go to, because I'm competing against me. Now there's guys, there's everybody in the class, everybody's got their heart rate monitors, everybody's looking at points, we're talking trash, but the reality of it is, Sunday I was at, my friend May owns the gym here in she owns 3, but she owns the one in Aventura I went to. The workout that we're doing, I don't know, month and a half old, and I hit 3 first place trophies. Dude, I'm posting that on Instagram, baby. I beat my own record. Comparison does 2 things. It's always a trap, but it does 2 things. Number one, if you're comparing yourself against somebody who's further down the road, let's say Grant, Tony Robbins, whoever, what happens is we get a false sense that we're not doing what we need to do, or a false sense of, man, I'm just not good enough. I just don't measure up. Or on the flip side of that coin, which is just as dangerous, it's just as big a trap, is we look at someone who's not where we are and we're further ahead down the road, and we get a false sense of security about how awesome and amazing we are, when the reality of it is neither one of us is true. Dave Ramsey says all the time, he says, my worst enemy is the guy I shave with in the mirror every morning.
100%. Well, David Goggins talks about that. It's testing mediocrity, right? We want to be the best of the average people. So I think that's where that portion of the comparison comes into play, because we surround ourselves with people who are not doing the things that we are, and then we're the best of the average people, right. And then we feel like, hey, we're great. Right. So I'm on the same page with you on that. I think there's 2 components to comparison, right? One, which is, in my opinion, a negative version of it when it comes to comparing it to people ahead of you or below you. Not even below you, just not on the same path. Mm-hmm. But I think the positive for me with comparison, I'm always trying to compare. Am I doing better than I did yesterday? Right. Or the day before? How I'm trying to track my progress and comparing who am I today versus who I was back then, and how I've grown and evolved, right? So talking about growing and evolving, I want to go into your story a little bit, because I know about the weight loss and the whole physical aspect that you've gone through tremendous adversity and just ultimately got to where you are now. Yeah. So I kind of want to jump into that story, the discipline that it took to get there and the mindset needed.
Well, I tell you, if you want something back, when you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, you'll make a change. The problem is if we're not self-aware and we don't have solid core values like teachability, we don't look at what's really going on. You said it, I don't face my own truth. Well, I love baseball. I umpire college baseball. I was at a Division I camp about 1.5 years or so ago, and great camp. Everything was fantastic. I'm 3-4 years back into umpiring baseball and been in college now for, this is my 3rd or 4th year going. And they were like, Ken, you've got great rapport. You do this well. You do this well. Dude, you've got to lose weight. And I knew I needed to lose weight, but I didn't realize how overweight I was until I got home and I got on the scale and it said 308 pounds. And I was literally disgusted with myself. The very first thing I did when I stepped on the scale is I put a blast out on social media. I said, here's what I'm going to do. My goal is 66 pounds. And I started on that journey, and in that journey, not just that journey really paralleled business growth and things for me, relationships, just some unbelievable things. And out of that birthed a concept I talked about this weekend at the conference we were at, is incremental, not monumental. small daily disciplined decisions, excuse me, small daily disciplined decisions over time always equal monumental results. Success cannot escape you if you do the right things every single day. The problem is we live in an Orville Redenbacher society. They want it microwave, dude. They want it 10 minutes ago. Like, I want to lose 66 pounds. Well, it took me a year and a half. And as I got close to that 66-pound goal, I moved it to 86. And now I'm at 73, 74 pounds. And that bad boy's about to get moved to 106, which is my ultimate. It's what I want to do.
Oh, I love that, because there's that quote that they say, success and failure are not one big event, right? It's a buildup of all the small things you either did or didn't do that got you there. And if you really look at it, Will Smith talks about this. He says, the definition of self-love is self-discipline. If you truly love yourself, you're going to stay disciplined to do whatever it takes to get the life that you want. If you're not staying disciplined to do whatever it takes to get the life that you want, do you really love yourself? And I think the most hard thing for individuals, the hardest thing for individuals is really staying disciplined on those small things, because, there's no immediate gratification, right?
That's right.
But it's the buildup of all those little things. And I think most people are just like, oh, you know what? One day it's not going to do anything, but then they don't realize after time it's building up, and that's why they are where they are.
Always does. This weekend you were there when I spoke Friday at the conference after Matt and before Brandon Dawson, and I felt like it went great. I felt like I crushed it. Felt like I knocked it out of the park. It felt like everything went great. But when I put my before and after picture up on the screen, it was a game changer. People were like, "What?" They couldn't. It instantly,
bro, we got to give you props,
dude. It instantly, the credibility was like, oh shit, this guy ain't just, he's doing it. It's not just business and business numbers, but this is a complete other story. This guy's literally doing it. And I think the thing is, if people will lean into that incremental, not monumental. The hard thing is, I tell people all the time, listen, if you have a bad hour, don't have 2 bad hours. If you have a bad hour, don't have a bad afternoon. Don't have a bad morning. Don't have a bad day. If you have one bad day, don't let it be 2 bad days. I've been here. I didn't eat keto yesterday. I had Taco Bell at 1:30. I was a designated driver for all the guys last night. We all went. It was a Brandon and Matt and them had a bachelorette party from Brandon, his buddy from Michigan, his whole team down. So I hung out. Then we were playing poker by the pool and drinking Trulies and eating Taco Bell at 1:30 in the morning. So. But today, you guys asked me this morning, keto. Your wife was like, "Boom! Here's your keto menu."
I hooked it up.
Yeah, dude. It's just, but you just get right back on it.
Yep.
And again, for me, I'm down, close to 75 pounds now. So if I want to eat, I haven't had a taco from Taco Bell in at least a year and a half. So if I want to have a couple tacos from Taco Bell, I'm gonna have a couple, and then I'm gonna jump right back on it.
Well, I think that's also like another hard thing for individuals, right? They slip up once, and then if you do it once, you'll do it again, right? And I think that's where it comes down to the discipline portion, because most people will let themselves slide, right? And then following day they'll just be like, you know what, I did it yesterday, kind of get comfortable, right? Yeah. So, I want to know, how has, the whole physical discipline, transitioned into your business? How's it translated?
I say this, that lack of discipline bleeds into every area of your life. When you exercise discipline, it breeds into every area of your life. So if you're disciplined, and there's something about, I talked about it on my coaching call this morning with my GSD community, there's something about being physically fit or taking that journey of going, whether you're thin and you want to put on weight or whether you're overweight and you want to lose weight, there's something. You got guns, man. That's why you got that baggy shirt on, so you can hide them guns today. There's something about that journey and the consistency and the discipline and the things that go with that. Because I'm telling you, I could have showed my balance sheet of what we did as a company our first full year, and people would have been like, oh man, that's amazing. But you show a before and after picture like that. Grant says all the time, you can fake a Lambo, you can't fake a jet. You can fake a Lambo, you can't fake a before and after picture. You just can't. It's impossible. I don't care how good your special effects are, dude. You just can't. When I put that picture up on the screen on Friday morning, it was a gasp. They were like, oh my God, because it's real and they understand. And here's the thing, Mike, if you're a leader, John Maxwell says this, leadership is influence. If you think you're a leader and nobody's following you, you're just taking a walk. When you're a leader, or our role as leaders, is to put people in position to be able to win and to put people in position to be able to believe that they can win. We've got to inspire people to a point to where they get into action. And then discipline begins where inspiration ends. There's got to be a level of discipline, but it's got to, as a leader, put them in position to be able to believe they can do it, and then constant encouragement through the process. The word encouragement literally means to add courage to. You're borrowing. I tell people this all the time. Listen, if you don't have enough passion, borrow some of mine. You don't have enough belief in yourself, borrow some of my belief, because I've got it for you. Until you've developed your own belief and your own passion, and you've got your own momentum and you're going in your own direction.
See, and I think that comes down to the people that we surround ourselves with, right? You have that quote where, get in rooms where people are thinking bigger than you. And, most people can't be what they can't see, right? So they're surrounded by the same thinking. They've never been around new role models, things like that, and they can't see that it's possible. So I know that's your quote, get in the room with people who think bigger than you. I want you to touch on how that's actually impacted your life and brought you to where you are.
It's been everything. Started 2 years ago. I see this crazy guy on Instagram. I never heard of him. His name's Grant Cardone. There's an ad. I'm like, number one, the energy and passion. I was like, because I don't get around too many guys that have more energy and passion.
You got quite a bit of energy.
Dude, I was like, who is this guy, right? Like, where did this guy come from? And then, a week and a half later on a Saturday, I'm on a webinar. And he's doing his, mentorship and coaching webinar. It's supposed to be 90 minutes. Dude, 2 hours? He hadn't even breathed yet. I'm like, dude, come up for air already. Like, and after 2 hours, I'm like, I don't know what you're selling. I'm sure it's some kind of coaching and mentoring, because I've been coaching and mentoring forever. If you'll go ahead and shut up, I'll pay you whatever it is you're asking me to pay you. That was on a Saturday. Monday night, we have our first call. Monday night, Grant pitches 10X boot camp. And I go down to Florida. Backstory on that, I was working on the largest commercial deal I ever had. It was $3 million. My commission on that was $78,720 on that commission. Monday afternoon, before that first mentorship call with Grant, I get a call. I'm representing the buyer. The seller, 72-year-old Chinese guy, is unrepresented. There's no agent on the other side. This is off-market property. The appraisal comes in at $2.625 million on a $3 million building. We're $375,000 short. Our deal is dead. It's done. I'm sitting there throughout, and think about it. The afternoon, you're like, and I'm supposed to close in 2 days. Dude, this deal's dead. I just lost $78,000. $78,000 to make you a little upset.
100%.
Get on a call with Grant that night on a mentorship. I think there was 1,100 people. He goes, if you come to Miami this weekend for my 10X boot camp, I'm going to do a special Q&A only for the mentorship people that are here. I said, I'm in. I text Jack Lombard, who's their top sales guy now, but 2 years ago he was brand new. I text Jack and said, hey, I'm in. I checked my flights, everything, all the details. I said, I'm in. So I spent, another $4 or $5 grand to go to see Grant that weekend. And I sat there through Friday, and at the end of Friday, I was like, where has this been my whole life? Saturday morning, we go into basically a Cardone licensee explanation, like a pitch. Like, here's Cardone licensee, here's what it's all about. I leave there, I go out in the hallway, I have an impromptu 5-minute conversation with Grant. He's like, what are you here for? And I tell him all the things I'm there for. Here to blow the lid off my mindset of what's a lot of money. I want to scale my real estate team. I was a church planner forever. I want to help church planners understand how to raise finances effectively and raise their belief lid so they can do it, so they don't struggle like I did the first 5 years I planted a church. And Grant goes, Ken, if you'll let me, I'll help you. And I said, okay. He walks into a session. An hour later, we walk into the Q&A. I pitched the deal that I had with Grant, just like I did with you. And Grant leans across. He calls me preacher. He leans across the table and he goes, preacher, just buy the building. And I'm like, it just didn't make sense to me. Because, again, this is where the quote came from, get in rooms with people who think bigger than you. I couldn't even comprehend what he was talking about. I've done, at that point, a couple $100 million in real estate. It's not like I didn't know how to do real estate. But his thought process and the way he saw things was completely different than mine. And he looked across the table, and he leaned over and he goes, preacher, do you not understand me? I said, no, sir, I do not. I'm like, what do you mean just buy the building? We're $375,000 short on the appraisal. My client's not going to pay $375,000 over. And Grant looks at me, he goes, Ken, if you overpay for the building, when your client sells it, someone will overpay for it for him. I still was not convinced. I said, okay. We finished that day on Saturday. I called my client. He's an African businessman. I said, Steve, I'm down here in Miami at this thing called 10X Boot Camp with this guy named Grant Cardone. He goes, oh, I love Grant Cardone. I've got money in Cardone Capital. That's a terrible African accent, by the way. And I'm like, well, let me tell you what he just told me. And I pitched the deal to him. He goes, okay, let's do it. I flew home Monday. I landed straight, had a meeting with the seller and my client. We negotiated a seller held second for the $375,000. I closed on Wednesday. We made $78,720. Grant was one of the first people. I told Grant this in December. He invited me and about 10 or 11 other people in the mentor to come in to do a day with him and Jared. And I go down and I told him, they had me share my whole story in front of everything I just shared with you, in front of the team and everybody. And I've spoken for Grant a couple of times since then. I told Grant, I said, the best I can describe what happened to me at boot camp that year was the businessman on the inside of me got born again. Something lit a fire from, even greater than when I built the mortgage company and then we got, crushed by the housing market collapse. There was something that happened. And then you can go from Grant Cardone, you can go to Sharon Lecter, Greg Reed, Brad Lee. I mean, I've got some phenomenal Tim Story. We were just talking about Tim just a minute ago. Pastor Tim's one of my favorite people in the world. Randy Garn. I mean, there's some really amazing people that I've had the privilege to have relationship with. And when you get in relationship, the purpose of those mentors is for you to glean and learn, to circumvent and cut off years of your development by leaning into the mistakes they've made and the victories and successes that they've had.
100%. And it's funny that you say that because, in my opinion, relationships, there's two prerequisites to an actual relationship. One, inspiration. Two, support. Without one of those two, you're done for, right? And it's funny that you also talked about kind of giving you the insight on their own mistakes, lead you in the right way. David Meltzer talks about that, the dummy tax, right?
Yeah, Dave's one of my guys. He's one of my mentors.
So, I mean, I think that's, honestly, the thing that most people aren't realizing is that they're not open, right, to hearing, the trials and tribulations that others have been through that, are in a place where you want to be because they think they know it all. Goes back to ego.
Dude, I'm telling you. Let me say this. I was working a college baseball game my first year back. It's been 3 or 4 years ago. I'm working with a buddy of mine named Jay Pierce. Jay is a former AAA umpire. Worked a few games in the big leagues, spring training and stuff like that. He is a minor league evaluator for the minor leagues, single A, double A. Like, you do not get to the big leagues as an umpire and not go through Jay. Well, we're working a D2, D3 college game in Atlanta. Well, Jay's walking down every half inning to the plate to give me little tips. Like, hey, when you do your strike, don't point to the dugout. Don't you give me a little 45-degree angle. Small little tips. I want you to follow that ball all the way in the glove until that catcher folds it and you can see the Rawlings label on it. I want you to lock in on that pitch every time. He's just giving me all these every half inning. Well, if you know anything about umpiring, when we're doing a college game, you don't ever talk to your partner. I mean, if it's a 3-hour game, unless you've got a play you need help with, or somebody gets ejected, or you've got an issue with a fight or something, you don't ever talk to your partner. Sometimes you don't see him for 3 hours. Jay's coming down every half inning. About the 5th inning, he comes down and he goes, and I had given him a pad, paper, and a pen. Anything you see today, I want you to tell me. And I was 48, 49 years old then when that happened. And he comes down about the 5th inning, he goes, are you okay with me coming down here and giving you all of these things to improve on? I said, Jay, if you told me to spin on my head on home plate during the 7th inning stretch, I would do exactly what you tell me to do because I want to be where you were. This is what I want to do. So why, when you have somebody like that in your life, like a Jay Pierce or a Grant Cardone or a Sharon Lecter or a Carlos Reyes or a Dave Meltzer, I was with Dave 2 weeks ago in LA. If you've got mentors like that, why would you not listen? Why would you not be teachable? Why would you not lean on the mistakes that they've made, the things that they've learned, the relationships they have? Because it literally cuts the time, the development time off of your life and off of your business.
100%. Well, I think a big portion of that is also like just the thinking that most people have, right? Regular society. I think that because they just see the glam, they think that it's a scam, right? And I've noticed that, what people I've spoken to, prospects, they're just like, how do I know it's real? And I'm just like, do you see how like genuine I'm talking to you?
Right.
It's all comes down to effective communication. If I can explain it to you in a way that's understanding and I can actually relay emotion in it, right? We relate to each other. You think you could tell that it's genuine. But then there's some people out there that are really just looking for the money, and you could tell.
Right.
I always tell everybody, stop chasing the money and start chasing being a person of value, and the money will come.
Yes.
It comes down to that value. And when Tim Story was on here, he was talking about first you have to know your own value before you can actually provide value. And I think that most people in this industry that try to get into coaching, they don't really understand their own value because they're just doing it for the money.
Well, not only that, but there's a lot of guys doing it that haven't done anything. And I ask guys all the time, I'm like, well, what have you done? And Brandon Dawson, when Brandon came in, he spoke right after me Friday. His 2 questions he asked is, what's the most money you've ever made in a year? What's the most people you've ever managed on your team? Like, he wants to know a couple things. Right off the bat, he knows. And a lot of it is authenticity piece we talked about off camera just a while ago. Gary Brecka, my real good friend who just signed with 10X Health Systems with Grant and Brandon, one of the things he talked about at my boot camp in Vegas at Bradley's space was, he said authenticity is the highest frequency we communicate with as human beings. It's the highest frequency, and it's also the most sought after. So when you talk to people and you're authentic, dude, people are going to connect with you. And it's not about, Brad said it in his talk at my boot camp in Vegas. He said, when we transition from trying to make money and revenue to how can we solve the problems of our clients? He goes, dude, our revenue went off the scale because we were helping people.
100%. I think that's the same thing that, I realized too, because when I first started my company, I wasn't, trying to sell anything. Brad talks about this. You want to, sell something, go in, not trying to sell anything, right? And it's all about asking questions, because if you can't ask questions, you don't get the information that you need to find the problems, right? I think that most salespeople are just talking about their products and services, or companies are just talking about what they do and making it about them rather than actually focusing on the other individual, right? But I kind of want to take it back. I know we went a little off track.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
So I want to talk to you about the Grant Cardone licensee portion, right? So how'd you get involved with that? I know we talked about your first 10X experience and everything, but what has being a Grant Cardone licensee done for you and your business?
Well, it's helped me meet people and get in rooms with guys that I might not have access to because of my relationship with Grant, because of the platform Grant has helped me have over the past year and a half or so. Because without that, some people wouldn't know who I am. Hopping on Instagram Lives with Grant, speaking at 10X headquarters for Grant. I've spoken in there 3 times, I believe. People knowing that I'm associated with Grant, him posting stuff on Instagram about what I've got going on, the team, the support. When you have that behind you, you're almost, and this is what he talks about in the licensee, you're almost borrowing all of the work and the pain and the sweat and the tears that he's had to build his brand. It's almost like he's taking the ring and he's going, yes, this is my kid. I bless what he's doing. My name, my brand, everything that I have behind me. So
what have you gotten out of it in regards to your business, though? I mean, obviously, the name and everything and the credibility and the connections, resources, but what has it personally done for your business?
Oh, we've grown tremendously. Cardone U's been huge. I was doing role play with my sales guy on the way here in the car this morning.
Let's go. Always taking action.
Yeah, we are, dude. We were, because he called me. He's like, I had a call and I did this, and I went, well, hey, did you think about this? No, because I've got one of the people that was there this weekend. She actually wants to sign up under me with EXP, and I said, Jimmy, did you? He goes, she said, we're going to book a call for you guys to get scheduled. I said, well, did you book a call with her? He goes, well, no, and I said, 2 purposes of a phone call. Number 1 is we're going to get information, obviously. We're going to get a sale, or number 2, we're going to get them to the next call. That's the process, and it's rewiring your brain to be able to think that way. And one of the conversations I had with him today was this. I'm like, dude, we're offering, literally it's life change for people what we're doing at GSD. Our goal is to help leaders, business professionals build confidence, gain clarity, and create community. The confidence is the number one thing people have to have, and it's confidence. We spend it. It's currency. We spend it every day in every decision we make, in every relationship we build. And there's a lot of people that lack confidence, and that's what I was walking Jimmy through this morning and referring back to Grant. He's like, well, they weren't sure if they wanted to buy a VIP ticket for Atlanta. I said, well, then did you ask them about coaching? What do we do? He goes, well, I offered him the 497. I'm like, no, go from 2497 to 13 grand.
Add more value.
That's exactly right. Just say, hey, have you thought about doing one-on-one coaching? So all of the knowledge and the information. I mean, Grant's a master, and Brad Lee, and Brad is as well. They're master salespeople. And when you're giving them the quality product that we are in the relationship and what we have to offer, it's a no-brainer, because we know that if you walk through these courses, you get into our community, you're on our 2 Zoom coaching calls a week, it's going to make a difference in your life. It's going to move the needle when it comes to revenue in your business.
All right, Ken, so I'm going to throw you a little twist on this.
Come on,
all right?
man.
So I know you're in the real estate game.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know Cardone, what he says about buying a home.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so he says it's, a bad investment because
Yeah.
it's ultimately, the bank's trying to take advantage of people,
Mm-hmm.
right? What's your perspective on this?
Well, so the one thing I've learned about Uncle G is you always have to look at what his motives are. So he would rather you just take that money and put it over into Cardone Ventures, which is great. I've got money in Cardone Ventures. I have a lot of friends that got money in Cardone Ventures, but that's what he would rather you do. Every house that I've ever bought, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. Every house I've ever bought, I've made money on, and I'm going to make good money on. I think Grant's thing is you're in a $300,000 house, don't put $100,000 down. Put the 3.5%, pay the MI, take the other, $300,000, 3.5% would be about $11,000, a little bit less, 11.5. Take the other $88,000 and invest it in some rental properties, so where you have some residual income coming in. I think that's more his point than it is if you've got a house. You don't want to have a house sitting with, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 in equity. Use that equity to be able to purchase some investment properties that are going to make you residual income. The definition in Rich Dad Poor Dad of being wealthy is your residual income earns you more than what your monthly expenses are. Robert Kiyosaki and Sharon wrote that book together, and they talk about in there that it's not a dollar amount that makes you wealthy. It's do your assets create enough income for you to be able to pay your bills? That can be $2,000 a month, and if your assets make you $4,000 a month, you're wealthy by definition. So I think that's probably the biggest thing. Grant's wisdom on sales, the passion, dude. He's always on. He's always going. That's probably been the biggest thing and the biggest help for us.
So in the near future, are you planning on, expanding the real estate portfolio with, obviously units to rent out?
Yeah, I mean that's probably the goal for us. Really, with GSD on the coaching and consulting side.
Got to partner up on it, because I already got 51 units in Pennsylvania.
Come on, man, we can do it. I mean, like I said, I had a deal this morning. Somebody sent me a deal in Houston.
Throw it my way, bro.
My superpower, and I will. I didn't know you did that, or I definitely will. My superpower is I'm a connector. I connect people. It's what I do. With you and that deal, and Carlos Reyes, I have so many amazing relationships. And I said this Friday in my talk. Be the person that wants something for people, not from people. And when you want something for people, bro, everybody wants to be in relationship with you. If you're adding value to people, I said this again the other day. Be the kind of person that when you walk in a room, people gravitate towards you, not away from you. When you get in a conversation, be interested before you're interesting. Add value. Be interested in what the other person's doing. Don't just come in and try to blow up and go, hey, man, my name's Mike Ashabi, and I've got this, and I've got this really badass office, and I've got an awesome staff, and I've got a sales team. Walk in and go, and you've always been that way with me. Kim, man, tell me what's going on. I mean, your wife was like, hey, can we get you some breakfast? I'm like, well, you can, that'd be great, but that's not my expectation. But it's always having really that servant heart of, hey, how can I add value and how can I make you feel? It's Dave Meltzer. I said this to somebody the other day. I was with Dave 2 weeks ago in LA. When you walk in a room with Dave, he does 2 things. He makes you feel like you're the only person in the room all the time. That's Dave Meltzer. Second thing is, when you leave an encounter with Dave, we were together 4 or 5 hours, you feel like you can conquer the world. Be that type of human being that makes people feel like they're the only person there. And when they leave your presence, they feel like they can go conquer the world. Any vision, any goal, any dream they have, they feel like it's possible just because they've been in your presence.
100%. Now, most people, they don't know how to to transition like that, right?
Yeah.
Because they're so used to being in their own ways of talking about themselves, right? Everybody's conceited in their own image, right?
Yeah.
So how do we help people? You being the coach, right? How do you go about helping people to make that transition and be more interested rather than interesting and make it bigger than them?
You have to understand the principle, number one. Want something for people, not from people. Zig Ziglar's quote, my favorite one, if I help enough people get what they want, eventually I'll get what I want. The whole premise of my new book that we just published last month is...
Congrats.
Thank
I didn't
you,
even
man.
know that.
Yeah,
You gotta give me a copy, bro.
We hit #1 bestseller on Amazon.
Let's go.
It's crazy, dude. I'm still blown away. It absolutely blows me away. But I talk about significance versus success. My first big event that I was ever at, that I was featured on stage, was in Michigan, 99, 2000. In between, I came on after John Maxwell, and then one of my mentors, Jeannie, came on after me. There's 8,800, 9,000 people there. I'm speaking to all these leaders, and I get done the next day. Jeannie takes me to lunch, and she sits me down, and she asked me this question. She said, Ken, do you want to be significant or do you want to be successful? And I was like, I was smart enough to know that significance was the right answer, but I didn't really know what she was talking about. But she just began to explain to me the difference between being significant versus successful. And so the way I describe it now is that significant leaders build others around them so they can win. People who chase success use other people around them so they can win. And the reality of it is, if you start out and you strive to be significant in other people's lives, you're always going to be successful. If you strive to be successful, you may or may not find significance or achieve some significance, and you're probably going to leave a trail of damage behind you along the way.
It's kind of like the whole business aspect. We're on the business, not in the business,
Yes.
right? Kind of utilizing your community or your environment, the people you're surrounding yourself with, to basically help them, give them opportunities to be able to go out there and perform effectively. And I think that's a big issue that most businesses have, right? Employee disengagement. Brandon Dawson talks about this
All the time. PPFs. We do PPFs with my team, and I learned that from Brandon.
And also the financial literacy aspect.
Right.
People don't know about money.
Right.
So how do you expect them to understand the client's money or even the company's, right? So taking that initiative and going in and teaching them about money, teaching them about personal growth and development. I always say this with salespeople especially. Sales and personal growth and development go hand in hand, because the hardest sale that you're ever going to make is the sell on you.
Yep.
Selling yourself on you. And I think that most companies aren't taking initiative to, really invest into their people like that. I always tell everybody, look, there's 3 essential investments any business needs to make in order to be successful. 1 is employees, 2 is marketing, and 3 is training. Without one of the 3, you're done for. Reason being, watch this, ready? So without the employees, you're going to invest in all this marketing, have no manpower to actually handle all the leads coming in. Without the marketing, you're going to have trained employees, but no opportunities coming in. And then without the training, you're going to have all your employees handling all these leads, but not handling properly to the point where they can transact. Right. So I think that investing into your people, showing them that you have their back. You're providing the tools, resources, knowledge. And every opportunity possible is the main thing that a CEO or a leader, don't even look at CEO, look at it as a leader, right? Has to be able to put forth for their people. And I think that most companies are just like, you know what, he's replaceable. He doesn't have the skills, the knowledge. And I think it really shuts people down from opportunity.
Well, a lot of time we say, oh, they don't have the skill, they don't have the ability or the capacity, when a lot of times it's a reflection on our lack of leadership because we haven't helped develop them. And we have an acronym we use in my office called FAT: faithful, available, and teachable. Like those, we talk about that concept. Dude, we are. I just sent. There's a podcast that Pat Lencioni is one of my favorite authors. Advantage, Ideal Team Player, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. He did with my friend Ken Coleman, who ran the EntreLeadership podcast for Dave Ramsey for a long time. It's from 2016. I just sent it to 2 young guys yesterday. I've listened to that podcast 250 times. Easy.
That's commitment.
Easy. I've listened to it, but it's so good because it's about organizational health. And the problem is we don't have organizational health because we don't have healthy leaders. And we have to understand that in leadership, John Maxwell talks about it in 21 Laws. The first law is the law of the lid. If I'm a 6 or a 7, I can't have 8s and 9s working for me. It's impossible. If I'm a 6 or 7 as a leader, I'm going to have 4s and 5s. And when they get to a 5 and they're bumping that 6, if I'm not raising my leadership capacity and growing and developing myself as a leader, they're going to go find another job. Brandon Dawson said it Friday. He goes, listen, the reason you don't have A players on your team is because you're not an A player. A players don't go work for B players or C players. They just don't do that. So what do I do? If you're a CEO and you're listening to this, you're watching this podcast today, here's what I would say to you. Look at your team and grade your team on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the best. And how many people do you have that are 7, 8s, 9s, and maybe even 10s? And if you can't honestly say, dude, I've got some killers on my team, then really the reality is it's a reflection of who you are. John Maxwell says this: you don't reproduce what you know, you reproduce who you are. You don't reproduce what you know, you reproduce who you are. So it's you as a leader. I mean, you are the lid in every area of your business.
I think another thing that I want to add on to that is, the fact where sometimes when you take, for example, let's say salespeople, right? You take them from another company, they already are in their own ways, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that putting, a period where you're actually consistently training them, mm-hmm. and you could bring on a greenie, okay? Mm-hmm. I think those are honestly the best people in sales, because they don't know what they're doing, and you could teach them your methodologies, your process, mm-hmm. your way, mm-hmm. and they're just doing it because they're trying to learn, and they actually go out there and execute, rather than, let's say, for example, let's say I take somebody from Jordan Belfort or Grant Cardone, right? They're already following that method, right? I have a completely different sales process that I've created myself, and transitioning, it's going to be harder for them to transition. I think, just that implementation of training is so important, because if you're not investing to your people like that, they're not going to feel.
It's taking the time. It's taking the time to do it. They asked Abe Lincoln, if you had 6 hours to chop a tree down, what would you do? He said, I'd spend the first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Like, you've got to sharpen your people. And when you do that, Mike, it shows that you care about them, because I want to invest in you becoming the best version of who you are. It's not about, if I do this, I'm going to move the revenue needle. If I do this, the revenue needle is going to go up. If I do this, we're going to generate more income. It's, hey, I care about you as a human being and an individual. It's where Brandon Dawson's the PPFs, the personal, professional, and financial goals, come into play. Huge game changer on teams. I want you to know, when you, in my onboarding process, this is what I help companies do. But one of the things I do, when you're onboarding or interviewing people, it's, hey, Mike, man, I appreciate you being interested in coming to work on our team at GSD. I want you to know up front, we are just as concerned with you helping reach your personal, professional, financial goals as we are asking you to help us meet our company goals. And in that, here's what we're going to do. We've got this form, personal, professional, financial goals. We want to walk through, and then every 2 weeks in our one-on-one meetings, we're going to see where you are. We're going to tie your work metrics to one of those goals. Brandon said in that one podcast he did, he stopped doing spot bonuses. But one guy he had on his team, single dad, couple kids, wanted to go on vacation to Disney. That was one of his personal goals. And Brandon goes, well, have you budgeted it out? No, I haven't. He goes, okay, when we meet in 2 weeks, I want you to bring the budget. You can't go to Disney for less than $7-8 grand. And so Brandon tied a metric in his KPI and a metric in his work performance to, if you hit this, we'll pay for you to take your kids and go to Disney. And he did. This is exactly what happened. When you do that, dude, you don't have to beg people to show up for work. Like, they're excited to come to work. They want to be a part of that kind of culture, that kind of team, where they go in and they're like, I'm heard, I'm growing, my owner, my CEO, my whatever cares about me enough to help me develop to become the best version of who I can be.
100%. It goes down to that word culture, right? And I think a lot of corporates, I think that, honestly, the small businesses are eventually going to take over, because if you look at corporate, they're just replacing people. They're not really taking the time to show the people that they care, right? Because it's like 200-300 people in a company. There's no way that the CEO could be, in contact with every single person. But the smaller companies that, you could build that culture, that one-on-one engagement with the people on your team, they actually feel like, hey, you know what, I have a personal relationship with him. I feel, cared for. He's showing me personally. Now I'm going to do the same for him. And I think that's also another big portion, the personal, professional, financial goals, right? So me with my clients, what I do is something called a prep call. right? I'm basically understanding their internal dialogue, understanding their why. Why is that your why?
Yeah.
Creating their why statement, understanding, their limiting beliefs, their pain points, and then building out their personal and professional financial goals and making sure that those goals are attached to that why. Now, I do something similar, a shorter version with my team, because if I did it with every single person, I'd be completely booked up, right? And the sales manager, he's going to be transitioning onto that. Just got to train it into that portion. But I think that showing them, hey, you know what? This is what it's really about here, right? You can actually develop as a person, and you're not just another number on the charts, right? Showing them that they're valued as an individual.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest portion that, the smaller companies have an advantage to than the big corporates.
Yeah, I agree.
So
yeah, I think that's fantastic. When you understand that, because the bottom line is we're in business. We're in business to make money. If I develop and pour into and spend time and resources in helping my team become the best version of themselves, not just in my office, but at home and whatever area or facet of their life that we can help them in, the bottom line is it's going to help our business.
100%. And I always tell everybody this too. Look, your personal life affects your professional life. And when I work with people, a lot of coaches, what they're doing is keeping life and business coaching separate. I combine the two.
Well, you can't keep them separate.
You can't?
It's impossible.
Well, most people do try to keep it, like, for example, business certification or life coaching certification. But at the end of the day, it comes down to your mindset, right? And I think that's why, you really got to focus on each individual by themselves. They got to feel cared for. They got to feel like, hey, they value me. Now, what does value mean? That I actually mean something, right? That I'm cared for. And then they're going to go all in. They're going to not think about any other opportunities. They're not going to try to go around and, snake you or anything. They'll actually have your back because you have theirs, right? But I know we went completely off topic, man.
No, it's good, dude.
So, real estate. When are you going to flow me some deals, man? I'll flow you some deals.
I'll when I get them, dude, I'll pass them along and let you look at them. I mean, for me, it's just I like helping people. I like connecting people, and if I can make a little bit in the middle, I'm good to go, man.
So are you only brokered in Alabama?
In Georgia.
Georgia. Okay. Are you planning on going anywhere else?
Well, I mean, I'm with EXP, so I can get my license in pretty much any state that I want because EXP is kind of a cloud-based brokerage. Probably not. I mean, really, my passion is GSD. It really is Growth Stack Drive. It's the book. It's the podcast. It's my live events. It's our community. The passion that I have on the real estate side is, like, I've got a guy who's been working for me for probably 3.5 months. Just put a $625,000 piece of property under contract last week. He'll make $60,000 with me part-time this year. Easy. And he's a full-time accountant, and he pastors a church plant he planted about 2 years ago. Well, he doesn't want to do accounting from 9 to 5. He wants to get out of that. Well, I'm going to give him an opportunity and a way to be able to do that through real estate. He'll make 6 figures. When he steps out of that job and out of that position and goes into real estate full-time, he'll make 6 figures probably in 6 to 7, 8 months, easily, because he's a go-getter. That brings me a high level of fulfillment, knowing that I'm helping him more than it does. I mean, I'll close $1.75 million this month myself.
Let's go.
And it's like, it's good. I mean, it's a good payday. Don't get me wrong, but it's like I just don't go woo. It just doesn't motivate me. It motivates me to help new agents.
Well, here's the thing too, right? So, in order to make an impact, right, in my opinion, you need a platform, right? So, what does a platform mean? You need to have finances, money, because I look at money as a tool that's going to help you get more exposure and get more exposure towards your message, right? Your message is your message, right? So the things that you've been through that you can inspire people through, that they can actually relate through emotion and then feel an emotional attachment towards you, that's how you build a following, right? And for me, personally, I always look at, I don't care about money. It's really just about getting that platform, just like you're saying, where you can go ahead and get the message out there and help people create their own opportunities rather than wait.
Yeah.
But Ken, where can people find you?
At Ken Joslin on Instagram, probably number one place. You can connect with me there. And growstackdrive.com, growstackdrive.com/Atlanta is our next event coming up. It's going to be phenomenal. We just confirmed Jesse Itzler this morning, literally while we were sitting in the break room. So super looking forward to that. It's going to be an amazing event. Dave Meltzer's coming to that one. I think there's a guy named Mike Ashabi we may be able to get up to Atlanta for that.
It's a surprise.
But yeah, so growstackdrive.com. There's a lot of information about what we're doing. The new book that we just published, podcast, As the Leader Grows. We've got some phenomenal people that we've had on that podcast. We're dropping that, totally rebranded it after the book. We drop that on all the podcast platforms. I think November the 18th is the day. So we're, 10 days away from dropping that. Our goal is to be in the top 10 on iTunes and the Spotify the first week one.
Cool.
Yes, sir.
You're going to get there. I know your commitment, man. You're gonna get there.
Dude, man, it's fun. I love doing my podcast as well.
And guys, look out. We're going to do an event together coming up soon.
Yes.
So, all right, Ken. I appreciate you joining me, man.
Oh, man, you're welcome home.
We got to have you on next time, too, round 2.
Yes, I'd love to.